I want to tell you a story I heard as a child. Maybe you heard it too. Now remember, it's a story, not a documentary. But like all stories, it has a message in it. I know some comedians have had great fun telling this story because it is rather implausible. The story can be found in the Hebrew Bible in the book of Genesis. It starts with chapter 6. Maybe you have figured it out. Now, we don't usually use many Bible stories, but this one is the beginning of the use of the word covenant. It's the first use in the Bible of the word. You see, this was a time in human history when God was a little more involved in world affairs than we now understand God to be. In fact, this personified God was really angry at the people for how wicked they were. God, so the story goes, wanted to wipe the humans off the face of the planet and leave only the animals and plants behind. But then God noticed Noah, a righteous man who had lived a life that God appreciated. God was so angry that he told Noah that he was going to destroy the entire planet. Now, I've been trying to tell this story without using pronouns, but it's become impossible. The God of this story is like an angry man and vengeful to boot, with lots of power and tools at his disposal. Anyway, God had a soft spot for Noah and the creatures of creation. God told Noah to build an ark, bring his family and 2 of every creature, and put them on the ark so they would be saved from the coming floods. Noah somehow managed to get it done, and the rains came a week later, and it rained for 40 days and 40 nights. Everything was wiped out, and the floodwaters remained for 150 days. God almost forgot about Noah and the ark, but when he remembered, he decided it was time to let them out. So he sent the wind, started to dry up the water, and after about 7 months on the ark, it finally came to rest on the side of a mountain. Noah sent out a raven and then a dove to see what would happen, because they were still surrounded by water. After about a week, a dove came back with an olive branch in its bill, showing that it was possible to come ashore. Everybody piled out of the boat, and Noah made an altar to God and sacrificed one of the animals. Go figure. God was pleased with Noah, but seemed to feel a little guilty for acting on his anger and destroying everything. God hoped he had set things right with this ark trick, and he says in Genesis 9, verses 8 through 15, that I've edited a little. Then God said to Noah and to his sons with him, I now establish my covenant with you and with your descendants after you, and with every living creature that was with you, the birds, the livestock, and all the wild animals, all those that came out of the ark with you, every living creature on earth. I establish my covenant with you. Never again will all life be destroyed by the waters of a flood. Never again will there be a flood to destroy the earth. And God said, this is the sign of the covenant I am making between you and every living creature with you, a covenant for all generations to come. I have set my rainbow in the clouds, and it will be the sign of the covenant between me and the earth. Whenever I bring clouds over the earth and the rainbow appears in the clouds, I will remember my covenant with all living creatures of every kind on the earth. Oh, and by the way, you can actually see this ark. It's in Kentucky. Anyway, I kind of like that the rainbow has been adopted as a symbol of diversity and of LGBTQ plus rights. A promise of diversity and inclusion, right? So there you have it. God promises to chill when he gets angry, and the rainbow is a reminder, a symbol of the promise. God made a covenant, as hard as it is, that God will let us work it out instead of punishing us for our misdeeds. The people were fighting with each other, and we humans could do better. And our covenant is to find the way. Now, my theological understanding of God is that God is love, that unnamed mystery that is found in our relationships, in the creative interchange that occurs among us. And it's up to us to figure out how to create a better world. Our covenant is our promise to each other that we will work at it. Our covenant of what we believe to be true is that to save the world, we must do it together, thoughtfully, lovingly. Fast forward a few thousand years and we hear about covenant from John Winthrop, who was interested in avoiding a shipwreck. His interesting choice of words for the wrath of God. Winthrop, a Puritan and the first governor and founder of the Massachusetts Bay Colony, delivered a sermon in 1630 known for its city upon a hill language. Winthrop believed that the people in the colonies needed to work together, rejoice together, mourn together, and recognize themselves as members of the same body. He believed if they did that, God would bless them. And he said, "We shall find that the God of Israel is among us when 10 of us shall be able to resist 1,000 of our enemies, when he shall make us a praise and glory that men will say of succeeding plantations, the Lord make it like that of New England, for we must consider that we shall be a city on a hill." Now that's really cringeworthy, isn't it? 10 resisting thousands and plantations. But the big idea is the community will pull together as people of faith to build something good. At least that's my generous interpretation that ignores the colonists' narrow definition of who counted as human. It's a message that spread among the colonies. You may remember that not that long ago I preached about the story of Dedham, Massachusetts, a place that was founded in 1637 and 8, and it was a history told by Alice Blair Wesley. The people of Dedham came together, Puritans, to deliberate about the kind of community they wanted to have. For them, it was about creating the free church, where Wesley writes, "The members might learn together the divine will of the loving God for the whole society, insofar as that will relates to justice, peace, and reasonable laws." And if so, the members would be compelled, bound to proclaim it and try to bring it to bear in their whole society. And there it all is. We learn to come together and are bound together to create justice and peace for society. Now, these examples from the 17th century are covenant in action. People undertaking something new and difficult, and they do it together, promising to create their own rules and structures, as long as they are created in dialogue and peace with one another for a greater purpose. The covenant they promised to find a way together. These people in Dedham didn't want to live next door to each other. That was a little too casual, not just living next door like we do in the suburbs. They wanted to be loving people who work together to help one another in the society around them. Being a free church in a public role, held together by their deepest loves. This free church tradition was in direct response to the Church of England, which was oppressive with its rules and dictates. And we Unitarian Universalists strongly hold to the idea of the free church without a creed and without top-down leadership. Our congregational polity, no bishop is going to tell me what to do, has a straight line from that early history. The Unitarian Universalist Association curriculum, Faith Like a River, describes it this way. While the Puritans were not theologically diverse, and maybe not democratically governed as we understand it in 2023, they created the basis for our congregational independence, or congregational polity and theological diversity. The Cambridge Platform of Church Discipline, written by the New England Puritans in 1648 in Cambridge, Massachusetts, describes the form this new church governance was to take. In the American Creed, Forest Church paraphrases the Puritans' essential covenant as this: "We pledge to walk together in the ways of truth and affection, as best we know them now, or may learn them in the days to come, that we and our children may be fulfilled, and that we may speak to the world in words and actions of peace and goodwill. The Cambridge Platform goes on to define in some detail just what constitutes a church. Yet this, a simple promise to walk together in the ways of truth and affection, remained the basis of the Cambridge Platform and our congregational independence. Now, Unitarian Universalists are independent thinkers, and our collective work in our congregations matters, what we do in our local communities. We UUs often say we are non-creedal, we are covenantal, and this is the difference. This idea describes what holds us together in religious tradition. The Latin root of the word religion, religare, is to tie fast. Our covenant in our congregations and among our congregations defines what it means to be UU, what holds us together, and what we imagine our role in the world should be. We don't just recite words from some ecclesial body. Rather, we agree that we will work together to understand and clarify our values, our worthiest loves, and our commitments to life in the world through this living tradition. It makes all the difference. With a creed, you say you believe and bang, you're in. For us to be in, you agree to be in the search together, the search for meaning, for justice, in words and actions of peace and goodwill. 20th century Unitarian minister James Luther Adams wrote about covenant in his article, From Cage to Covenant. For Adams, liberal religion was to stand critically before tradition and creed and reject coercion in religion. He wrote, liberal religion's attitude of mind we generally characterize as a freedom of conscience, open-mindedness, tolerance, the liberation of the human spirit. Beautiful attitudes, but attitudes alone do not make or change history, he says. The road to hell is paved with good attitudes. They require institutional embodiment. Indeed, the liberal attitudes mentioned appear initially in the 17th century in connection with a power struggle undertaken in order to change social structures. The struggle was revolutionary. It was a revolutionary institutional struggle, a struggle against the cage of centralized power in church and state and the economic order. Congregational polity, he says, was the new conception of a covenanted church that gave form to this struggle, a polity placing responsibility upon the members. It's what we covenant to do, responsibility, deeds, not creeds. There was an old New Yorker cartoon that has two men standing before the pearly gates, and one guy goes in, but not the other. The guy who goes in turns and says, I guess it was deeds after all. Now, Adams argued that we took this free church in the wrong direction. We fragmented ourselves into private religion when the world around us was facing massive poverty and hunger. In other words, we need to consider not just church politics, but our responsibility as a congregation for the larger world, especially for Adams in the face of poverty. That, for him, is our covenant. Bob reminded me that the UUA used to have a tagline that read, nurture your spirit, help heal our world. Nurture through learning and growing together, including using loving deliberation and dialogue exemplified by those early Dedham folk. Heal the world through engaging together to build a city on a hill, but let's make that city one that is inclusive and works towards justice that liberates all, not just a few or just us. In 2021, the Unitarian Universalist Association Commission on Appraisal published a report called Unlocking the Power of Covenant. The foreword is rather interesting. It starts out saying that the commission itself struggled to live up to their own covenant and learned that living up to the covenants we make is difficult. Dishonoring them can happen all too quickly if we are not mindful, and the aftermath of breaches of covenant can be traumatic and erode trust, undermining relationships, and successful completion of a mission. Living up to a covenant is hard. And the commission realized after they broke their covenant severely that the covenant starts with care about each other, with love. And they learned a lot about themselves and what it means to be in covenant in the process. They write this powerful description of what covenant is. A covenant is a mutual sacred promise between individuals or groups to stay in relationship, care about each other, and work together in good faith. In the Unitarian Universalist tradition, we seek to raise the we above the I, the community above the individual. As seekers, we willingly choose to love each other and stay in relationship over and over, again and again. In this way, although we may break promises, by leaning into the transformational power of our faith, we can begin again in covenant to love. Now, I worry a little about the inward focus of this definition, so I prefer to focus on that transformational power of our faith. Our society continues to change and we change with it. Consider how the Industrial Revolution has moved society away from collectivism and toward individualism. According to the Commission on Appraisal report, individualism leads to excessive competition, resource grabbing, political corruption, and the like. As an alternative to both this individualism and the other extreme of totalitarianism, or the denial of individual freedoms, it becomes even more important to see ourselves as interrelated individuals and covenantally interdependent. Individualism continues to grow and I might say is rising to dangerous levels. Don't tell me what to do. It affects how we provide for our social safety net in significant ways, with individualists right now trying to strip away Social Security and Medicare, two of the largest and most effective social safety nets we have. In an era of rising authoritarianism and attempts to deny freedoms, it feels like working in community together is more important than ever. For UUs, we do this work through loving one another and listening to one another, nurturing ourselves and each other. And we do it not just to be together, but for purpose, for mission, to walk together into the world and help heal it. Now, I do see pushback against individualism in society and among UUs. I see it here in this congregation. For example, this congregation comes together to decide what to give energy to in the world. What charitable cause should we get behind? What among our greatest loves should we covenant to affirm and support? It's hard when you're small and geographically dispersed, but you're doing it. Your letters to the editor, the book drive, presence in the Pride Parade, presence at the health department meetings, these are all examples of your worthiest loves. Covenant means we work together, rejoice together, mourn together, and recognize ourselves as members of the same body, even though it's not always easy. We pledge to walk together, that we may speak to the world in words and actions of peace and goodwill. We often sing the song in our congregations that uses the words of the Sufi poet Rumi. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again, come. Now there are some words left out of that song that were in the original poem. These words encourage us to stay together even when we know it's hard and we might walk away because we're not living up to some unstated standard. These words are, though you've broken your vows 1,000 times, come, yet again come. We invite you back, we welcome you back into covenant over and over again. Rumi says, come whoever you are, but don't despair if we don't get it right. We keep working together so we can clearly state who we are and what we love. These words imply solidarity and liberation. We want to think for ourselves, and yet we grow when we think together. We accomplish more when we work together. We build the beloved community when we work together to heal our world, broken and mended. Come, yet again come. Amen. May it be so.